Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard, along with your host, Bill Stierle. And Bill, it's become really clear to me from my little perspective that there is such varying perspectives on the COVID situation in our country right now. It's become very clear to me in discussions with some of my close friends and my experience being in another state just recently that there are really two very different worlds Americans are living in right now, and we don't understand each other as well as we could. I mean, I've seen this firsthand with someone very more conservative person asking questions. Hey guys, why all the testing?
Right.
Because where they live, it's not a part of their daily concern or lives, that it just isn't impacting them, it seems, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the hard part, Tom, is how do you start with a compassionate and empathetic response rather than an explanation response or an informational response or a problem-solving response? How do you start with and lead with a compassionate and empathetic response of somebody just generally trying to reach out for information? I think that's one of the problems that we're actually facing, which is the bigger problem outside of COVID, is how do we deal with and separate the mounds and mounds of information that's available to us? I mean, it's too much for our brains to process and to find a stable thread of certainty. Think how difficult that sentence is. A stable thread of certainty about information. A stable thread.
I don't know if there is one.
And when the CDC changes its guidelines, it's changing its guidelines based on the best facts that they have when they're changing the guidelines. Not, they don't know what they're talking about. They're changing it on the facts. That's the idea. Now, in the past, there was a push to get them to be more political, and they pushed back, say, we're not going to make a political piece out of this. We are going to follow a thread of numbers, facts, and reporting information. That's what we're going to follow the thread. And that's why, whether it's a talk about COVID or other subjects, it's very, very difficult. And it sounds like that you had some interaction for people that were reaching out to people on the internet to find out what their take was on COVID testing. Do I have that about right?
Yeah, no, you have that right. So, I have very close friends I've been friends with for, oh my gosh, more than 40 years since we were in grade school. And there's 5 of us, and we communicate daily. We have a Facebook Messenger group. It's just a private group for us to communicate. And it started during the pandemic. Well, maybe before that, but we connected a lot, mostly during the pandemic, as we were all on lockdown. And so recently, several of us have been talking about buying at home or, rapid testing kits.
Right.
And a lot of us have been buying them. And there are some of us live on the East Coast, some of us live on the West Coast, and the one in particular lives in Texas. And the one from Texas said, "Hey guys, genuinely just curious, not trying to be Barbie, but why all the concern over testing? Why all the testing?" Because he lives in South Texas, and it's like COVID's not really a thing there,
Right. Kind of
according
thing
to him.
in his area. Yeah.
Yeah. And or at least the
It's
perception
limited
is it's
impact.
not a thing. Yeah.
It's limited. They're limited. Certain parts of the country and certain cities have limited impact. Their hospitals aren't that full. They're not having a high death rate in their county or they're in their
Right.
hospital. It's barely reaching the radar screen.
And then there are other states where the hospitals are being overrun again. The healthcare workers are exhausted and,
Yep, again.
mentally unstable because of everything they're seeing on a daily basis.
Right.
Understandably so. That's not a criticism.
Sure.
And so different people within the group were explaining, well, my mother's elderly, my father's elderly. My grandson, who is too young to be vaccinated, is asthmatic.
Right.
My mother-in-law just had breast cancer surgery, and
Right.
many
Right.
people just wanted to have some safety and protection for their family members or themselves. I mean, one of them is asthmatic as an adult, and getting COVID, they may be compromised in some way, even if vaccinated. So having the testing and knowing that either it's safe to gather with family members on Christmas or New Year's or not, and in fact several of them, their families tested positive, or certain members of the family tested positive over the holidays, and so they did not get together with extended family for wanting to make sure they were protecting their family member and not putting them at risk. So this was sort of the perspective that actually I would say the majority of us in the chat group expressed in a very civil, respectful way to our friend who lives in Texas. And the friend who lives in Texas was appreciative of understanding that because he didn't have that perspective.
Well, I really appreciate you bringing up the word perspective. Our perspective and our perception has limitations to us as human beings, because one of the things that we quest for is certainty. We also quest for predictability. And from that, we quest for safety. Now, truth is after those. So it's not, we're not looking for truth first. We're not trying to figure out which truth is really actually best. We're not doing that. Truth can be situational. Just ask any 7-year-old, any 15-year-old. Truth is situational. I went out because I'm connecting with my friends. So what if there is whatever, alcohol at the party, drugs there, driving in a car? I am doing it because I'm connecting with my friends. How could you, as a parent, prevent me from connecting with my friends? See, truth is not even on the list of going like, wait a minute, I'm going for safety and protection for you. I was safe. I was protected. It's like, oh my God. It's like so regrettably, our adult mind for many people has not matured into a perspective, is a weird way to say it, but it's not, we don't have a perspective of what are our emotions following. Our emotions are following things like certainty and stability and protection. And some people's are driven by choice. Some people's are driven by freedom. Some people are driven by identity. Ask anybody that puts a sports jersey on. They're driven by an identity. Go Chiefs, go Rams,
or
go Chargers,
Pittsburgh Steelers.
go Steelers. They're driven by the identity of the team, and any other team is the enemy. And it's who won, the latest game is how do I feel that week? huh? How do I feel this week? It's like, and I watched the Monday Night Football game. It's like, the poor Browns lost to the Steelers. They had a rough season this season, and they lost. Well, last year they kicked the Steelers' butt in the playoffs and sent them back in the first quarter.
Yeah.
But nobody's remembering that. Why aren't they getting credit for that game? Because this game was the most important for the home team Steelers. And last year it was the Browns gloating. This year it's not, because of injuries and offensive line and blah 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 blah. Now I'm dragging our discussion into a sports analysis, but it's in the political analysis. It's how do we talk about having protection and consideration of others regarding a health crisis, whereas another group's going like, listen, I want freedom and choice to go whatever restaurant I want, and I don't want to wear a mask, and I don't want to get vaccinated. Some people are in the place of the act of defiance, because their need for freedom is choice, and some people are in the act of, I don't have truth if it works, and it doesn't work 100% of the time, so I'm not taking it because it only works 90% of the time. That logic always gets me a little bit.
Oh my gosh, it gets me too. And I mean, as we were talking,
not fully, not a full logic. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as we were talking in preparation for this episode, I was expressing to you, I just don't understand how people can be so dismissive of others, and not understand that, hey, wearing a mask in a public situation may protect other people from getting sick. I couldn't understand some of that logic or the disbelief. And some people saying, oh, coronavirus is just a control mechanism of the Democrats to
that's
control our lives, to have power. And you were explaining to me the needs of this other side and how to have compassion for them, and that was illuminating for me.
Yeah, they're having. I got to have compassion for that person that says the sentence, "The Democrats are controlling this thing." They're invested into an identity and a belief structure that has been built up inside them, that has either a small, very small, or a medium-sized truth to it, as many things do, but it's not really fully the big picture. The big picture is that people are sick, people are dying. What kind of people? People that are older, people that are obese, people that are sick with pre-existing conditions. Those people are vulnerable. Certain kids are vulnerable, the ones that have those respiratory asthmatic things. One of my clients has an asthmatic kid and is terrified right now. Terrified because their kid could be in that hospital like that,
right,
on a respirator. And they go like, I'm not losing my 7-year-old, is what he's saying. And and gets pissed at anyone that brings up the things like, wait a minute, you're going to put my 7-year-old at risk because you don't want to wear a mask? Is that what you're doing over there? And yeah, but it doesn't really matter. So you're still going to put my 7-year-old at risk? Yeah, but it's like, see, he gets on fire on this. He just goes like this. That's because his perception and his perspective is based on the awareness of and the consciousness of he's sitting with the thing he could lose. That's precious to him.
Sure.
And the other person's not sitting with that.
Well, and what's interesting to me is you're really helping me see that the person that's very cavalier about COVID, or very dismissive, or not really, who's maybe anti-vaccine or certainly anti-mask and not taking this the same way others do, is because they have a different need. Right. And I didn't understand that need. And
Yeah.
they're placing that need above the value of someone else's health.
Yes, somebody else's need. They're pushing their, it's not my need. That need is not is not in my top 10 or not in my top 5. Therefore, I don't care about that need.
And that was amazing. I mean, those there, but the need is not anything to do with health and safety on its face. It's a different kind of protection, isn't it?
It is. So human beings will protect and fight for an idea to the death. People will protect and fight to the death for an identity. They'll do that. People will raise a flag because they value the flag and fight to the death because of that flag. So they're going to do it because they value that thing. There are people that have fought for abortion rights and trying to overturn those to the death and have caused death to others that are exercising their belief and their value about a woman's right to choose. And because they're fighting for the baby's right to choose, because they are valuing life. Because it's a hard discussion to have. How do you value life? And when is murder murder? You see, that's where they come from. See how unsettling that is?
Yeah, no, it is quite unsettling, and it's true. And it's
Unsettling.
that's one of the most difficult debates, I think, in human existence, or even, certainly in America, that continues over time.
Very, very, very challenging. So we have a hard time with change. And we also, there's so many things. There are so many things that human beings are not required to process on a daily basis. They're not required to process it. From a governmental standpoint, or even from a business standpoint, it's like, why tell them? Why tell them they're going to be upset and they can't do anything about it? So big things, like you and I were talking beforehand, like the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, 13 days before there were missiles launched between Cuba and Russia and America. That how are we going to pull this off and avoid this whole missile thing? And doing that, how are we going to do that?
Well, and the public really had no awareness
Or consciousness that it was going on. And is that a conspiracy? And was there transparency? The answer is why? Why are you gonna get them? So they could be ready. Ready for what? So that a nuclear bomb doesn't land on their head. It's like, and it's really very, very difficult. It's how do we keep our heads? How do we keep our rational mindset around and go like, listen, it's not a good choice for, and what it's the Cubans and the Russians and the Americans getting together and go like, we're just going to take a pass on being violent to each other. And we're going to trust, which is what the Cubans needed to do. Trust that America is not going to invade us like they tried before,
right,
or overturn us like they tried before, because they tried that.
Yeah, they tried it and it didn't work, or they didn't try hard enough when they did it, or whatever. I mean,
right. And so that's the and so that's the challenge is that, and what's the fight? What's the fight for? How can we get the fight to take place, in a above the board fashion? And, America's had and has had a good run of trying to work through its issues. This is just the problem of our generation. One of them is, how do we deal with a pandemic? That's one of the problems that we have.
And it really was quite something to me when I realized that there's an awful lot of Americans right now that place that protection of an idea, the protection of an identity, or protection of a value of freedom, let's say, right? Independence, not wanting to have a mandate put on them. They they're protecting themselves from those things at the expense of other people's health.
Right.
And
Right.
that was unsettling to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good catch.
But when you understand that where their need is coming from, at least it helps you understand why.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me happy that they're doing it, but
No, it's not a happy choice because it's not in the spirit of collaboration and cooperation. It's not, I'm going to say it, it's unsettling. United we stand, divided we fall. Why is that sentence not in front of us like on a daily basis? Just want to everybody remember, hey, united we stand, divided we fall. Can we remember that thing? Let's go and remember that. Any politician that wants to take that up and stand there, it's like, yeah, united we stand, with divided we fall. Bring on your conflict. Bring it. Any politician that would like to step into that arena and claim that sentence as their own and say, I'll debate anybody on your Democratic or Republican values. Bring it. Bring it now, right in front of us. Happy to talk about it. Because united we stand, divided we fall. We need to find some form of commonplace, not, I'm right, you're wrong, shut up. That's where we are. And the answer is, unfortunately, a lot of folks are in that space.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm right, you're wrong, and shut up, which is, it's one of the struggles we have as a nation because we don't deal with mistakes well. Mistakes move into a category of guilt and shame way too early instead of it just being a mistake. It's like, you just made a mistake. You don't have to feel guilt or shame about it. How about just disappointment? How about I just feel disappointment I didn't pick you up rather than guilt and shame that I didn't pick you up? Does it really need to escalate all the way to? And that's one of the challenges, is that we've escalated our language. We've lost perspective and perception about how to deal with differences and upsets. We don't have a perspective of that, and our politicians are underskilled on both sides of the aisle. They're underskilled about how to communicate differences and to navigate through the experience. Just having a little bit of honesty, and then start to get back where we can have a gentle trust that this group of scientists at the CDC are doing their best to set some guidelines based on some facts that they're gathering, and that they may change those guidelines as things get better. Not because they lied to us 6 months ago, is that they didn't have the information 6 months ago, or the information changed, or the virus changed. And we are trusting the scientists to measure the viruses. But it's really a stretch for people's things like certainty and trust. And they really struggle there. I mean, whether it's in business or in politics or in our personal life, the gentle adjustment of our perception and perspective can make a difference.
I agree, it can. But the other thing, let's take, something else, Bill, that we talked about is the CDC changing their guidelines on how long you should isolate if you've been exposed, from 10 days to 5 days.
Right.
And from a certain perspective, people can say, oh, they're changing the guidelines based on the best information, the good information they have now, and the information they had in the past was different, required 10 days. Now,
yeah,
either the state of the current coronavirus variant or better data now from 2 years of dealing with this virus or whatever, they say, hey, only need to isolate for 5 days now. Well, that's one perspective. The other perspective is, see, the government really doesn't know what they're doing. They should have had this 5 days all along. They've been making us do 10 days. We can't trust them. We don't even need to isolate at all. Right. I mean, that's
perfect. That is a perfect example. Perfect example of that mindset of we can't trust this group of people. We can't trust the government. And that kind of disarray, it's the unraveling of certainty. It's the unraveling of trust that creates the division. And so, once you start down the path of creating the division, then all of a sudden people look like enemies that are really not enemies. They look like they're fighting for something, but really they don't agree with, like 90% of the things that you don't agree with. So,
and it's very difficult to battle that. I mean, the truth really doesn't matter at some point there.
yeah. So
It's
it doesn't mind. You're undermining confidence and creating doubt and skepticism for a short-term gain. In sales and marketing, if you create doubt and skepticism inside the listener, they will stop purchasing one product and start purchasing another product because they start to trust this other product. So if I create doubt and skepticism about Democrats because they weren't able to move the needle on some issues, and this other person promises you that they're going to move the issue because they're a businessman, they're going to mix it up, I'm outside the system, I know how to run these things, I have a big company. And the answer is you are out of your element. but the person believes it. They believe
right.
them. And people believes and still believe that Trump is a great leader. They believe that. And we have to have empathy and compassion for that belief because he sold it to them. And this is not political, by the way. There are all kinds of folks on all levels of. Is Nancy Pelosi the strongest messenger that we can have as a human being? No.
No way.
Does she miss, like, I don't know, a third of the time? Yeah. Is she sympathetic to others? Yes. Is she empathetic? No. So it's really, really, that part's really hard.
It is hard.
It really,
It is
really hard to, so, when we're, as a communication show, the way there's some hope in that. There's some hope is that when we start adjusting our perception and our perspective, we gain more awareness and consciousness about how to respond to people that are upset, and also how to deal with some of these difficult issues, which is how do we care for each other by wearing a mask in social settings. Just let that sentence live in social settings. No one's making you do anything other than you choosing to care for others.
Now, that's a nice way to frame it, because then the person thinks, well, I have the freedom to not wear a mask, but if I don't wear it, I don't care for you. I'm essentially an asshole, right?
Right. I know one thing for sure that I'm coming out of the pandemic with. Whether I get COVID or not, I know one thing for sure. In the future, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whenever I get a cold, I will be wearing a mask until that cold is over. Hands down, I know that's true.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to consider others. Before the pandemic, I could give a shit. I'm walking around sniffing it and my whole house gets sick with the cold.
Right.
What the hell am I doing that for? But I know that now is that I want to consider the well-being of my family. They do not have to get this cold and go through what I did to build their immunity. Why? Let them catch the cold on their own. And if they happen to get it but at least I'm doing my part for protection and consideration of their well-being, let alone work, or let alone I'm going to stay home more often. If I have a cold, I'll wear a mask at the grocery store if I have a cold 5 years from now, because I have a cold.
It is going to create a new normal. And when I think about my children who are in middle school and grade school, they, guys, where's your mask? Got to bring it where we're going. It's not even oh, Dad, come on, I don't want to wear a mask. No, it isn't that. It's like, oh, okay, mask, sure, got it. It's like putting on your seatbelt.
It is literally going to turn into a seatbelt situation to prevent colds and outbreaks and stuff like that. There's certain cold viruses that are less contagious that will literally not be able to survive because human beings are actually doing their part to protect the spread of it in a city and a work environment and stuff. I mean, there's certain countries that do a great job about, you're sick, you stay your ass home. You don't come to work and infect everybody at work. The hell are you doing? Germany, some other countries like that have that mindset. They're going like, what, you're sick? Yeah, you come back with a doctor's order. Then if you're cleared, then we're letting you back in this place, because otherwise you're not getting this whole place sick, and then you're going to kill our productivity of business. How about that as a standard? You stay home sick is what your manager will say to you. You're sick, not you're sick, you're making it up to take a mental health day. No,
no way. No, those days were over.
Stay the hell home, So, but this is a way to really consider, this kind of topic about how do we listen and process a mound of information, is to be able to really kind of talk through it like this and kind of stick the landing on what need are we going for and how can we best make a decision from that perspective, and have empathy and compassion for the other person's position. And then it'll go better.
It certainly does make things go better. It allows us to have a civil discourse, adult conversation, and not hate each other.
Not hate each other. Yeah.
And that's what we need more of in America, I think, where out where people are really living and working.
Let's see if we can dial down the outrage. How about that?
I like that. Okay, Bill. Wow.
All right, Tom.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.